All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about something a little different. I've ventured away from the doubt series that we've had. I feel like I've answered some of those questions or helped illuminate truth to some of those. The goal was not to give you a 100%, this is the answer to all of your questions and doubts. So that's not the goal. But the big idea tonight is because Jesus changed everything for us by His sacrifice and who He is, we are called to move beyond our biases, and we're to show radical mercy to everyone, especially those who are difficult, those who are different, and those who are downright annoying. We just need to show mercy to everyone because we've been given mercy. Listen, I know y'all know some annoying people, okay? You go to school with them. Maybe they're in your household. You got some siblings that might be a little annoying sometimes. It's okay, I was one of those annoying siblings. That was me. But all of us have somebody in our life that's just difficult to love, right? They're difficult to love. I did. I looked straight at Stephen. See, I lived many places, okay? I've lived in, where we live, honey. How many times have we moved? Charlotte. A lot. But we've moved how many times? 11 or 12 times. But there is one spot that I remember specifically. It's actually where we had two of our kids, right? New Bern. We had Lincoln and Carter over in New Bern, North Carolina. But I had this one neighbor. Let's call this neighbor the man who mows after I mow my grass. Like he literally, all the time, I'd get on the lawnmower, I'd crank it up, I'd get going, and then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, I see this guy trickling out of his house. He's got keys in his hand. He cranks up the mower, and he's like, "Hey, neighbor." I'm like, "Man, why you got to cut your grass every time that I got to cut my grass?" Well, sometimes what would happen is that I would let my grass grow a little bit just because I didn't want the competition. I didn't want like, hey, like cut my grass because you're cutting your grass or anything. Well, it just so happened that he'd start to cut my grass when I didn't cut it for so long. He didn't cut it the way that I wanted to cut it. There were grass shavings everywhere. His lawnmower wasn't as good as mine. And so it annoyed me. I didn't want him cutting my grass, even though he was doing something kind for me. Even though he was trying to be a friendly neighbor, I found it annoying and I did not appreciate it. I did not appreciate it. But then God checked my heart. I realized that this guy wasn't annoying. He wasn't a nuisance to me. He was actually looking for connection. And who was I to deny him connection because of what has been done for me? He saw something in my life. Maybe he saw peace. Maybe he saw a family dynamic. Maybe he saw something that he didn't have. And he was trying to mow his way into my world so that he could gain a friendship with me. And I'm sad to admit I didn't always meet him where he was. And I have some regrets in that relationship in my life. In fact, I haven't reached out to him. I have his phone number, and as I'm thinking about it now, the Lord just placed on my heart right this moment to contact him and to reach out to him just to see how he's doing. But he started out as an annoyance, and then I started seeing him as a neighbor, and something changed. Actually, everything changed. We actually did become good friends. So tonight, I want you to turn to Luke chapter 10. In Luke chapter 10 and verse 25 is where we're going to start tonight, but I got a little stat here. The truth is, that is true. You like that? That's the friends. We're all neighbors. The thing here is that we're all neighbors, okay? Friends or neighbors? They watch Neighbors? That's a good show. Hey, reboot Neighbors. We need it right now. Click. You like that, Craig? You're like, where did you get that picture? Hey, listen, I'm sneaky. I'll find pictures. The truth is, we're living in a crisis of connection.
Who's that young person?
Which one?
Mr. Craig.
Craig?
The one next to
Alicia?
your wife, yeah.
But it doesn't look like me.
Yeah,
It really doesn't.
Also, why does Miss Hadeen have purple hair?
Oh, every picture that I have of Mrs. Hadeen, it goes back to her purple hair.
Because I had purple hair.
Yeah. Yeah. So she had that purple hair, and I loved the purple hair, Mrs. Hadeen.
Me too.
So I put it up on the screen. Every time I get a picture of you, it's with the purple hair. Listen, ChatGPT is not always the best at facial recognition and putting everybody in their best.
Sora AI.
Sora? I got to learn from y'all. I got to start using Sora. See, the truth is we're living actually in an age where we have a crisis of connection. We have everything, right? We have phones. We have social media. We have, some of us, Instagram. Some of us, Facebook, if you're old like me. Some of us, Snapchat. We have all these different things that we can connect with people. I think there's something called Be Real. I have no idea. All kinds of stuff. But according to Pew Research Center, only about 26% of U.S. adults say they know their neighbor. Only about 26% of people, according to this research center, actually know their neighbor.
I know my neighbor.
Well, you're in the 26%. But it said adults, not kids. So we have thousands of friends on social media. I have 2,000 people on my friend list on social media. But yet, I am not connected to every single one of them. I might think that I'm connected because they see my post, they see everything that I do, but I don't have the ongoing connection and relationship. But in Luke 10, a man asked Jesus a question, and it reveals that he has the same problem that I had in New Bern, North Carolina. He wanted to keep his neighbor, actually, at a distance. So let's turn to Luke chapter 10. We're going to start in verse 25. I think I have on the screen 27 through 28, but I'm going to start in verse 25. So this was a religious expert. I want you to have some context here with the person that's talking to Jesus. This is a guy who withheld the law. This is a guy who was righteous according to man, who may have been blameless, somebody that did all the right things. You look at them and they would be the model citizen in your school. They would be the model citizen maybe in your household. They would be the model citizen at church. They would be the one that everybody turned to. And this is what he says. Behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Verse 26, he said to him, what is written in the law? This is Jesus. How do you read it? And he answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And this didn't surprise Jesus. Jesus looked at him and he said, hey, you have answered correctly. Do this and you will live. But the man wasn't satisfied. He was like, well, I'm doing all this, so I should be living. But he desired to justify himself in front of Jesus still. He said to him, and who is my neighbor? And that's the question I think a lot of us can struggle with. Who is my neighbor? Is it the person that I'm already friends with? The person that lives next door to me? See, this guy was actually seeking a loophole with Jesus. He was saying, hey, Jesus, yeah, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your soul. I got all that down. And love your neighbor as yourself. I think I'm loving my neighbor, but wait a second. Jesus, am I actually loving who's my neighbor? Because I feel like I've been loving my neighbor pretty well. And Jesus responds here in a second, if I can get to it. He responds with the story of the Good Samaritan. Luke 10, 30 through 35. Jesus responds with a story that has a massive scandal to the people listening. They would have thought, hey, Jesus, this is hypocrisy. That's not my neighbor. I can't stand those people. Those people are evil, and they did have a lot of run-in with each other. So Jesus replied, verse 30, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, and they left him half dead. Now by chance, a priest was going down that road. This is somebody you would have thought would help, a priest, right? And he saw him and he passed him by on the other side. So next, likewise, a Levite, outstanding person as well, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, he came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. See, the Jericho Road was a 17-mile descent known as the Pass of Blood. This is not a safe road to travel down. First of all, I don't know why a priest is going down it. I don't know why a Levite is going down it. But they knew that if they were to stop, they would be in trouble. And first, that's what they thought first most. But second most, it's somebody that if they stopped and helped, maybe they would be in danger. It was rocky, it was winding, it was filled with places and bandits to hide. There was all these spots down the road, Theologians will say this spot right there is a spot where it's easy to get mugged, it's easy to get robbed, it's easy to get killed. And if you stopped for a stranger, you were putting your own life on the line. The priest and the Levite, the professional religious guys, they saw the mess and they passed by on the other side. Because it could be a setup. It could be a trap. It could have been one of those dangerous situations that you put yourself in. They likely didn't want to become unclean for their temple work either. They didn't want to stop by and become unclean to help an unclean person. So they chose ritual over the person in their path. Jesus was actually attacking something here to the righteous lawyer. He was attacking his heart posture and his mind about how spiritual that he was. But then comes the Samaritan. To the Jews listening, Samaritans were the enemy. There was a deep-seated racial and religious hatred here. It goes far beyond just your annoying neighbor. It goes even further than that person at your school that you just can't get along with. These were mere enemies towards each other. They loathed each other. Their cultures did not mesh well because they had different beliefs. They were different people. Verse 34, he went to him and bound up his wounds. This is what the Samaritan did. He poured on oil and wine, and he set on his own animal, and he brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii, and he gave them to the innkeeper. Does anybody know what a denarii is?
No.
It's
But
a,
that's money.
yes, but how much money?
Actually, though.
Like $200. 20.
I think a denarii was a day's wages. I think a denarii was a day's wages. So he gives this guy 2 days' wages. Quote me on that later. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I think that denarii was 1 day's wages. And he gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him for 2 days. And whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. So not only does this good Samaritan help this guy in need, but he provides him a place to stay, and he takes care of him financially to the point that he's healed up. See, the Samaritan didn't just feel bad, he had compassion. He did something about it. Compassion is, in the original language, is a gut-level reaction that makes you move to act quickly when something happens. He used his own supplies, his own donkey, and his own money, and about 2 days' wages, yep, I have it written there, I did the study, 2 days' wages, to save a man who likely would have been hated if he were awake. See, religious leaders often avoided corpses to remain ceremonially clean for their work. They worked in the temple. It's like bringing a dead body into the church, or like somebody who maybe stinks off the road, or like a homeless person, bringing them into the church. Some might not have a good feel about that, especially if they have to sit beside them, right? Nobody wants to sit beside somebody who stinks in church. Let's just be real. Like, I come to church, I'm guilty of this. I want to be comfortable. I want to sit generally in the same spot. I want to be around people that I know. But God is growing me in that. And it takes a long time. I'm the first to admit that I have a hard time accepting somebody that I don't think looks like me, or talks like me, or even belongs in the same place as me in my mind. See, the Samaritan didn't just do a nice thing. He took on the financial burden for the man's entire recovery. See, Jesus didn't tell this story to be nice. He didn't tell this story because he wanted people to be nice either. He told it to make people uncomfortable. He was exposing their racism and religious bigotry. If we're honest, we all have a side of the road we prefer to walk on. We have biases. A bias is just a preference that makes us treat one person better than another. We all do it. Maybe for you, it's not about race or religion, and that's good. You're one up on most people. Maybe it's about social status. Maybe you have a kid in your school that doesn't have all the nice things that you have. Maybe you have a kid that just doesn't seem to fit in wherever they go, and they're the awkward kid that nobody wants to be around. Maybe it's the popular kids versus the lonely kids in your school. According to a general social survey report, only about 44% of Americans help a neighbor even once a month. We are a nation that passes by on the other side because we're too busy. We're too tired. We're too scared of the mess that it will bring. But Jesus says that if we want to follow him, we have to stop. We have to get our hands dirty. We have to be willing to be that Samaritan for somebody else. Following God and hating are incompatible. We can't do both. So I have a question for you today. Who's the person you've been crossing the street to avoid? See, mercy is messy. Who is that person at your school that sits in the corner, that doesn't seem to have any friends? That they go places and they act out, and yet everybody waves them off. You don't give them a second thought. You don't give them any chance. See, Jesus finishes this story with action. He puts the lawyer on the spot. And I'm going to do the same to you today because Jesus would do it. Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And just like the lawyer, I think we have to answer the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. You go and do the same. But even so, we see something specific in this text. The lawyer walked away, and we don't know much of what happened next, but we can see from the text that he couldn't even bring himself to say the word Samaritan. He couldn't say it. He said the one who showed compassion to his neighbor, the one who showed mercy. Jesus isn't looking for people who can define the word neighbor in a textbook. He's not looking for somebody who knows the answers. He's looking for people who will actually be the neighbor in the real world. Jesus is looking for somebody who will stand up when a kid's getting bullied, who will look at somebody in isolation and say, hey, listen, man, I got this group that you can come to. I think you'll make some friends. I think it'll be a good time. We do some fun stuff here. Jesus changed everything for me. See, I was once half dead in my sin on the road. And Jesus didn't just walk by me. He came to me. He paid the price that I couldn't pay because he was the ultimate good Samaritan to my soul so that I could be free to love my neighbors, not to get God's love. He didn't free me so I could have eternal salvation and keep it for myself. He paid me in his rich mercy, his rich love. He lavished it upon me so that I could lavish that back to the neighbor that also needs it. See, I already have God's love. If you've been saved, if you've been bought with a price, if you are a child of God, you already have every bit of compassion that God could show you. You already have all of his mercy upon your life. You've been bought with a price. You no longer live for yourself. You no longer stay in the flesh. God calls you out of the flesh and he calls you to walk in his spirit. He calls you to walk in his light. He calls you to love your neighbor as yourself. See, God says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, because you can't have one without the other. You can't say that you love God and hate people. They can't exist together. You can't say that you love God and treat people poorly. You just can't. God's love inside you should pour out so much that it pours into somebody else's life. If you're not investing in somebody, if you're not going to the weird kid, I was the weird kid. If you're not going to the weird kid and befriending them, then you're not living on mission. If you're not going to the kid who doesn't have all the fancy stuff, they don't have the eloquent speech, they don't fit in anywhere. If you're not going to them and showing them kindness, what are you doing? And listen, if you're like me, maybe you felt like that kid before. Maybe you felt like the kid on the other side that just didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't super athletic. I wasn't super nerdy. I was a little bit nerdy. But like I couldn't have a Star Wars talk with somebody. You know, I played Pokemon. That was relatable, right? Who plays Pokemon in here? Come on, me all the time. How much do I play Pokemon? I was the king of Pokemon Go. I was the king of Pokemon Go. Yeah, and I was up here just spinning and taking the gym on. The thing is you have something in common with the person that you don't think that is your neighbor. You do. God's going to place somebody on your heart. I don't have to tell you who they are. God's going to put somebody in your path this week. He's going to put somebody in your path this week that you need to just be the bigger person and show them love. Even if everybody else is walking by them and ignoring them. We're called to be better. We're called to be the good Samaritan. If we can't even say, hey, I don't want to be seen with that guy. You know who was also kind of guilty of this? who learned their lesson because they got called out in Scripture? Peter. Peter was one of those that people looked up to. Peter, and hey, listen, Paul didn't even call him Peter at this point. He said Cephas because he wasn't acting like Peter. That's why I think he called him Cephas. I have no idea. But I would have said, man, that guy Cephas, I opposed him to his face. He got with the Gentiles, he started eating with the Gentiles, and then his Jewish buddies came around the corner and he said, oh, hold up, I don't want to be seen with them. They're eating unclean food, they're doing things that I wouldn't do. These guys are going to think poorly of me. But Paul called them out. And you too should be the person that calls out a friend and says, hey man, why didn't you go talk to them this week? Why are you acting friendly to them, but as soon as your friends came around, you treated them weirdly. You pushed them to the side. You walked a path around them. So just be thinking about that this week. God is gonna put somebody in your path. He's gonna challenge you. He's gonna challenge me because I had to talk about this today. So he's gonna put somebody in my path that's annoying this week. And I'm gonna have to go, you know what? God, you got a sense of humor, and I'm just gonna practice what I preach because of who you are. But let's pray.